Iniquity will is on our people to bring so much shame upon
Destiny awaits.
To witness now the strength within the team, and at each rehearsal, you know, much like our ancestors in 1831, we were really galvanised with the hardships that we faced, and it was just a magical experience, and we really started to feel like we were becoming a family. Prior to going to the Fringe now, which we still had the monumental task of raising funds for, we had 2 preview performances scheduled, returning again to the Princess Royal Theatre and one at the Red House in Merhtyr. And also, we were invited to open the book launch for Sally Roberts-Jones's new book, Dic Penderyn, The Man and the Martyr, performing on stage alongside Martin Joseph, the composer of the Ballad of Richard Lewis, as well as some street theatre excerpts. So we were invited to open the Merhtyr Uprising Festival, or the Merhtyr Rising Festival, in Penderyn Square on the 3rd of June 2022, exactly 191 years to the day that the Merhtyr Rising occurred. And to be there on the spot where the flag was raised at the exact date, and to do it ourselves, was something that will live with me forever. And we felt so honoured and privileged to be able to do that. And that for me really was the sort of start of our journey in taking this story now of Wales's first working class martyr to the world art stage. Along with the Merhtyr Rising Festival, we got permission from Cardiff City Council to actually go to Cardiff, to St Mary's Street, under the archways outside the Cardiff Market, to perform some scenes on the actual site where Richard Lewis lost his life back in 1831. Now, as we were performing, ordinary people walking past doing their shopping on a Saturday, whilst we were performing Act 3, Scene 2, the jail scene, on the site where the old Cardiff jail was. And I think I spoke the lines, "What will be, and thunder and lightning struck." It was at that moment, I think we all realised what we were creating was more than just art. It certainly was a moment where I think everybody present, from James and I as the performers, to the crew, people who were in the vicinity working, to passers-by, anyone who stopped and shared that moment collectively, it was almost like an acceptance of a greater power.
We cannot control our fate. All we can do is control the world using these demands. Long live Dic Penderyn!
Funding was still an ongoing issue, and like I said, in my mind, there was nothing that was going to stop us from going to the Fringe. We were going. However, now the cast and crew were hitting some incredible heights. If anything, it was a challenge for me to make sure that they didn't peak too soon. We were about 3 weeks out from the opening of the preview performances, so we were going to do one performance in the Princess Royal Theatre, and then another in Merhtyr at the Red House on Penderyn Square before going to Edinburgh. And everything was going really, really good. Then 3 weeks before the opening preview performance, I received a message from Joe Rising, a Scottish actor, to say that he'd been offered a professional job. It was an opportunity he felt he couldn't turn down. The dates clashed with the Fringe, and he was out.
I wasn't actually able to continue the full show, so I wasn't able to make it to the Fringe, which was gutting, obviously from, not my hometown, but home country.
So again, 3 weeks before the opening night, similar to the world premiere in 21 with Alid's motorbike accident, I was without a key role, a pivotal role. It wasn't a role like you could sort of paper over the cracks and maybe dish out similar lines to existing members of the cast. There was nobody within the existing member of the cast really that I could use. So I had to find another actor who could do a credible Scottish accent and learn the part and perform it, and was available to do it and for the dates we needed for free in 3 weeks. Again, ringing round actor friends, directors. I was given the number of a young actor by the name of Kai Thayer Roberts. We spoke on the phone, immediately was drawn in by his sort of enthusiasm and zest, and then he came in for a rehearsal, read for the part, and was quite literally not our knight in shining armour, but our soldier in shining armour, and took on the role of Private Donald Black and smashed it out of the park.
So the 24 hours that I knew about the show and the part, it was unconventional and it was a bit, you know, it was very short notice, but I think that's what's so perfect about acting. You know, every time you have an opportunity, it doesn't matter whether it's a couple of hours or whether it's 4 weeks, you know, you go for it. And this was something I wanted to perform. I remember saying to my mum that I wanted to perform again, and she turned around and she was like, why don't you just do it? We'll just go for it. And I found out on the Tuesday, and then I ended up going to my first rehearsal the next day on the Wednesday, and yeah, 3 weeks later we were performing opening night. So it was very different to what I'm used to, but it was a challenge, and I like a challenge. So speaking to my mother, it had been a little while since I'd performed. You know, I graduated in 2020, and yeah, obviously 2022 was when I had done my first thing properly. I think the reason why it took me so long to get into performing again was obviously with the pandemic in 2020, everything was very different and everything was very up in the air. Nobody really knew what was going on, particularly from an acting point of view. You're already waiting for the opportunities to come, but it was such a long time where there wasn't, you know, an opportunity for you, for many people, especially starting out. And so, yeah, doing some background work and making sure to stay on set and keep the creative juices flowing, and then finding out about the opportunity. It was funny, a couple of weeks before, I had spoken to my mum about, I was like, I need to perform again. You know, this is what I want to do, it's what I've wanted to do for a long time. And luckily this opportunity just came out of nowhere. And I remember being on the phone with Stu and him telling me the story about Dic Penderyn and the Merhtyr Uprising. And I realized that it's Welsh history I've never heard of. You know, as somebody, I've been in Wales almost my entire life. I love being Welsh. It's one of my favorite things to talk to people about. And this was something that I had, growing up in Swansea, not that far away from Port Talbot, and I had never heard of this story. And I think that's a big thing that grabbed my attention. You know, I feel like Welsh history, a lot of Welsh history isn't known to a lot of people, but also to a lot of Welsh people in general. And that's something that really grabbed my attention.
A phone call off Stuart a few years back with this sort of inspiration to deploy this Iniquity Camwedd story. Myself and Stuart were in school together, and we performed in a number of plays at a young age. And I hadn't done any acting for sort of 28 years because I went straight into the steel industry. So I was very cautious, but Stuart being a good close friend, I seen his passion. And I took the jump. He said originally it was a couple of hours a week, which turned into several hours a week, but that was to ensure that we did this play justice. So very grateful for that. Again, I play rugby with Stuart in the Port Talbot Panthers mixed ability team, which we help individuals within the community. And it was just inspiring, really. You know, as we collected the cast together, I made new friends, created other opportunities, and we worked together to deliver something special to the people of Wales.
We managed, somehow, to recast all of the parts, again with some professional actors and with inexperienced actors or amateur dramatics, and the cast was finally reassembled and things were starting to get back up to speed. The next mammoth task was funding. We had some really big bills looming over us. The funding committee were, we'd set up a WhatsApp group, we were still having our meetings, and everybody was pulling together to sort of think outside the box on how we could raise this money. The irony of it is, I suppose, it was almost looming over me like an execution, because I knew I had these dates coming down, 2 massive payments in particular for the accommodation and for the venue. So the accommodation final payment was about £11,500, which was needed by the 31st of July. And then the final payment, which was around about 8 or 8,500, if I remember, and that was due on the 4th of August. They were looming over me. And if we didn't raise that money in that time by those deadlines, I'd lose everything. The deposits at that point, I'd self-funded out of our life savings. And in my mind, nothing was going to stop us going to Edinburgh. But I wasn't naive enough as well to think that, how were we going to do this? How were we going to raise this money? It put an immense pressure on my wife and I. We had a newborn baby. Our house had become production central. There were props, costumes, set, wardrobe.
Oh yes, lots of tears. Lots of tears. Lots of stamping of the feet. And I remember the second time round that we did Iniquity, where I played Elizabeth Lewis. I think was Beatrice, I think she was 8 months old. Yeah, must have been 8 months old. And we had the entire set in my living room. It looked like an antiques warehouse, because it was just, and we live in a little terraced house, so it's not very big. And we couldn't move, and then I remember saying to Stuart, I can't believe you've done this. We've got an 8-month-old who's crawling everywhere, and she can't crawl anywhere because the set is in our living room. You know, this is just ridiculous. So I was not happy about that. But it was only there for a couple of days.
Just taken over our house. And I didn't perhaps share as much with Non about my concerns regarding funding at this point. Obviously I needed to have the conversation with her about how we were going to raise that money. And on top of that as well, now she was my leading lady. So I really wanted her to just focus on giving the performance I knew that she was capable of giving. Around mid-June 2022, I booked an appointment to go and see my bank manager. And we're quite fortunate in that the house that we own is now worth a lot more than we paid for it. So we've got a lot of positive equity there. And I can remember sitting opposite the bank manager, having that conversation about remortgaging our house. And my internal monologue was just saying, what the fuck are you doing, Stu? What the fuck are you doing? You're putting everything on the line here. The bank manager asked me as well, I remember, because when you're looking to borrow such large amounts of money, they need to know what you need it for. I couldn't tell him. I couldn't tell my bank manager that I needed to borrow tens of thousands of pounds to take a play that I'd written to the Edinburgh Fringe, because he'd probably look at me like I was barking mad, certainly as a risk. But yeah, that was a moment whereby it was make or break for us.
1931, 10,000 workers marched as one. An insurrection had begun to end the debt of slavery. Iron workers and miners came, and labourers to break the chains, united in their